This question states that a student measured 25 grams of sodium metal. So just to be clear, sodium metal is NaS, and it's mixed with an excess amount of hydrochloric acid. So mixed with excess amount of HCl, and they've given you an equation for this reaction. It's found to be here. Okay, so from this information, we are asked to find the amount in grams of sodium chloride formed. So we're trying to find the mass of sodium chloride. So with question 1, the mass of sodium chloride is the aim for this question. Now, the information that we have so far is the mass of sodium, which is equal to 25 grams. And we are told that there is an excess amount. There's an excess amount of HCl. Now, when there's an excess amount, all that means is that the HCl is going to be there to ensure that all of the sodium gets converted into sodium chloride and hydrogen. So there shouldn't be any sodium left over. So we've got the mass of sodium. We can also find the molar mass of sodium, because we do need to translate this information into mole. So we know that the molar mass of sodium is 23 gram per mole, and that's from our periodic table. And then what we can find is we can identify the mole of sodium. So the mass, 25 grams divided by the molar mass, 23 gram per mole. So when we work this out, we end up getting, so 25 divided by 23, we end up obtaining 1.08696. I'm just using an accurate answer. I'll leave that answer in my calculator and then use the more specific decimal in the continuation of this calculation. Okay, so then we have to find the amount of sodium chloride. So this is where we have to start thinking about our stoichiometry. Okay, so I'll just get rid of this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the mole of sodium with the mole of sodium chloride. So you can see that the ratios, there's the same mole of sodium chloride as there is of sodium. So we just have to times it by 1. So we don't really need to do anything with this in terms of the ratios. We know that the mole of sodium chloride is going to be identical to the mole of sodium. And so therefore we just say it's equal to 1.016956. Okay? And finally, because this question asks us to find the amount in grams of sodium chloride formed, we then have to find, okay, the mass of sodium chloride. Now, so we may need to translate the mole back into a mass. So to do this, we would have to take the mole of sodium chloride and times it by the molar mass of sodium chloride. And the molar mass of sodium chloride, you can just calculate that from your periodic table. So, and then you would take the mole, which is 1.08, that answer essentially from there, and times it by the molar mass of sodium. So sodium is 23 and chloride's 35.45. So you just add those two, 23 plus 35.45. So the total molar mass of sodium chloride is 58.45, and then we get a mass of 63.532608. It keeps on going. And then we need to remember how much mole we were actually, how many significant figures we were actually dealing with. So you can see that the 25 deals with 4 significant figures. Okay, so this is going to be cut off at 4 significant figures, and therefore it is 63.53, and it's not mole at the end, it's grams. I apologize for that. So it's grams. So this is the mass of sodium chloride. Okay. Now, find the amount of hydrogen chloride in grams that reacted with the sodium. So this time we are looking at, we have to find information about, in question 2, we have to find information about the mole of hydrochloric acid or hydrogen chloride that reacted with the sodium. Okay, and so that is going to require us to use a bit of stoichiometry. This time, we will be comparing sodium. Because sodium is a limited reagent, it's going to be important to compare sodium with hydrochloric acid. And to find out exactly how much sodium actually reacts with hydrochloric acid, we already know that from the previous question. This was the amount of mole of sodium that's involved in the chemical reaction, so 1.086956 mole was the amount of mole of hydrochloric acid that reacted. And the amount in grams, well, in grams, we are going to have to convert this into a molar mass. That's going to be 36.45 gram per mole. And then we can just work out the mass of HCl, which is that times that. So, just multiplying it by 36.45, the mole by the molar mass, and we end up with a value of 39.62 grams. So that's the mass of hydrochloric acid. And if you look at the next question, it says, what assumptions are you making in calculating question 1 and 2? Well, generally you're making the assumption when you're using stoichiometry across, like if you're trying to use it from sodium to predict how much sodium chloride is made, you're assuming that it's 100% efficiency, okay? Also, if you're trying to convert sodium, well, trying to find sodium hydrochloric acid from sodium information, you're also assuming that all the reaction proceeds forward and that all of the sodium is reacted. So there's a few assumptions that you're making. So assuming complete chemical reaction. And also that all of sodium solid was reacted. Okay, so those are some of the assumptions we're making in this question.